If you govern with a generous hand, then your people will be good people. But if your system is too constricting, then your people will outwit you. Good fortune, we say, can come from disaster, and the reverse is true as well. Who knows where all this will lead? Honesty can flip into deceit in a moment. People trying to be good can fall into the dark, and it can take them years to get out of it. So the sage is like a razor, but he doesn't cut. He is straight as a die, but not pointedly so. He is bright, but not blindingly so. This is an interesting verse that's sort of chopped up into a couple of different things. The beginning is a bit of a layering upon the last verse, where it talks about governing people and how to do so. And here it very clearly says, be generous, be willing, be open, be trustworthy. And it also says that if you're too constricting, which is very much what the last verse was about, then your people will outwit you. So this sort of states it in a different way. But think about something like prohibition in the US, where the government all of a sudden said, shut it down, alcohol is bad for you, it's illegal, it's got to go away. Did everyone just stop drinking? No. it serviced this entire world that we now sort of romanticize of speakeasies and ways in which people came to gather and produce alcohol anyway, and do so all while completely outwitting the government. And so it became this sort of contested relationship, right? And when you put too many restrictions on people, this can be what happens. You are just sort of incessantly courting a contentious relationship. If you are a bit more open and let them be as they will be, then you have an opportunity to build bridges as opposed to walls. There's then an interesting sort of mid-verse in here that says, good fortune, we say, can come from disaster, and the reverse is true as well. So everyone's familiar with this idea, something terrible happens, and we say, well, what could be good about this is X, Y, or Z, or the good that could come from this is X. But here the Tao is saying, hey, guess what? The reverse is true as well. So disaster can come from good fortune, right? Not just good fortune can come from disaster, but disaster can come from good fortune. Are there ways in which having a fortunate life, having an easier or seemingly easier existence with more abundance, more access to more things, are there ways in which this actually brings about disastrous outcomes for many people? Something to consider. And then the second half of this verse is all about the sage and how the sage stays in the center, meaning things are happening very strongly to one end of the spectrum and to the other end of the spectrum, and the sage can sort of be with those and observe those, all while maintaining the center. The truth can flip to deceit in a moment, and people are both good and bad. We've talked about this many, many times. People are not good or bad. Everyone is good and bad. And yes, those things can live on a spectrum, and that spectrum probably changes over time. But whether you want to believe it or not, all people are good and bad, not good or bad. Same thing with all things that happen. That's sort of a callback to that mid-verse where disaster can come from good fortune, not just good fortune can come from disaster. Because in good fortune lies disaster, and in disaster lies good fortune. Those things all come together. They are one in and of the same. They arise together. And all of these things are very much of that same vein. The sage continues to draw toward the center, and even if the sage seems sharp like a razor, he does not cut. And even if he seems like he's very much on the straight and narrow path, it is not pointedly so. And even if he is bright, it is not so bright that he is blinding to others. Find the moderation even in your ability to shine forth hope and love and greatness. Govern that to a degree. Find a way to constrain it in some way, in the sense that you are not then impinging upon or instructing other people and disallowing them to find their own way and to live their own life and to be whatever version of themselves they want to be.